The story begins in the Scottish Highlands during the late 18th century, where we meet a young boy known simply as the Boy. He brings food to a nameless prisoner called One Eye, named for his missing eye. One Eye is bound in chains with multiple guards keeping close watch over him. One Eye turns out to be a terrifyingly powerful warrior capable of defeating every opponent even while bound in chains. A group of pagans keep him enslaved and force him into deadly gladiatorial fights against other prisoners. The only person who feels sorry for One Eye is the Boy. Though the Boy too is just a helpless slave, One Eye also possesses the rare ability to foresee future events through his dreams. Later, the clan prepares One Eye for yet another fight and leads him to a gambling arena packed with clan masters. One Eye's owner, the chieftain, steps in and sends One Eye to fight after his first warrior falls to the opponent. Even while restrained, One Eye dominates the fight and snaps his opponent's neck, leaving the entire crowd stunned. Afterward, he is chained up again and tossed back into his wooden cage. The Boy feeds him again, and despite One Eye's total silence, it is clear he has a soft spot for the kid. Though, admittedly, which interpretation you land on depends entirely on what you've seen Mads Mikkelsen in before. A rival clan master approaches the chieftain and notes that nobody has managed to keep One Eye for more than 5 years. The rival tells the chieftain his time is up and offers to buy One Eye, but the chieftain refuses to give up his prize moneymaker. In the days that follow, One Eye is pushed through fight after brutal fight and wins every single one. The chieftain and his clan discuss One Eye and arrive at one shared conclusion. The man must have crawled straight up from hell. One night, One Eye has a prophetic dream in which he discovers an object lying at the bottom of a pool. The very next day, while washing in a lake, he finds a broken arrowhead and secretly tucks it away. That night, a stranger visits the chieftain and rails against Christians, accusing them of killing their own god and consuming his flesh and blood. He warns that Christians despise pagans and actively pray for their complete destruction. He boasts that pagans are superior because they worship many gods, while Christians cling to just one. The stranger declares they must go to war with the Christians, and for that, they will need One Eye. The chieftain resists selling his slave at first, but a generous enough offer of money finally changes his mind. The following morning, the Boy delivers One Eye his usual food, after which the clan yanks him out of his cage. The chieftain demands to know who One Eye is, but gets only silence, so they hood him and drag him away in chains. On the road, One Eye uses the hidden arrowhead to cut through his neck chains and immediately launches his attack. The clan members swarm him, but One Eye cuts through every single one of them with ease. He wipes out everyone except the Boy and pins down the last surviving clan member. When the restrained man mocks him and swears he will burn in hell, One Eye slices open his belly as the man shrieks in agony. One Eye then impales the chieftain's severed head on a pole, a traditional Norse insult offering. As he walks away, he recalls the chieftain's words, that One Eye is fueled entirely by hatred, and that is why he never loses. With nowhere else to go, the Boy falls in behind One Eye, who allows him to come along. They travel and rest side by side for days, with the Boy chatting away while One Eye says absolutely nothing. The Boy shows One Eye a locket given to him by his father, but One Eye remains completely silent. That night, One Eye has another vision. He sees himself, the Boy, and a group of men aboard a boat. The next day, the two stumble upon a band of crusaders who have burned a village and taken its women captive. The crusaders are Christians, and their leader, the general, demands to know which clan the two belong to. One Eye stays mute as always, so the Boy, fearing for their lives, blurts out that they are Christian. The general doesn't buy it and moves to attack, but a crusader steps in and identifies One Eye as the fearsome warrior who massacred his entire master's clan. To test One Eye's mettle, the general sends his own son forward to fight, but the general's son takes one look at One Eye and backs down. He simply cannot bring himself to face such a man. The general asks his name, and the Boy explains he has none. They simply call him One Eye. The general invites the two to share a meal and talk further with his group. Over the meal, the general asks what the two of them intend to do now that they are free. The Boy says he wants to go home, but has no idea where that even is. While One Eye says nothing, the general reveals the group is marching to reclaim the Holy Land and says they could really use a warrior like One Eye. He swears there is great honor in the mission and that vast riches and land await those who join. A priest jumps in to persuade One Eye, promising that whether he lives or dies, his sins will be wiped clean and he will see those he has lost. When the general asks where One Eye is from, the Boy deadpans that he was raised in hell, on the other side of the ocean, right next to a Denny's. After thinking it over, One Eye agrees to join, and he and the Boy board the Crusaders' boat, exactly as he had foreseen in his vision. Before long, the voyage is plagued by relentless obstacles, smothering fog, dead winds, and punishing ocean currents. During the voyage, one of the Crusaders tells the Boy how Christ gave his life so that all of humanity could be freed from pain and misery. He explains this is why they travel to defend God's kingdom and urges the Boy to stay strong through the ordeal. But weeks drag by and the weather does not change, leaving the men increasingly frustrated and desperate. The Crusaders pray without ceasing, but the sea shows them absolutely no mercy. Stranded in the middle of nowhere with dwindling food and water, morale begins to collapse. In desperation, one man gulps down seawater despite warnings from the others that it will kill him. Tempers flare across the boat, and the Crusader who has been preaching at the boy about Jesus becomes more persistent than ever. Eventually, the man who drank seawater succumbs and dies, and the others cast his body into the water. Weeks later, nothing has changed, and the Crusaders begin to wonder if some dark curse is upon them. They point the finger at the boy as the source of all their misfortune and decide to kill him. A man lunges at the boy with a knife, but One Eye drives a blade into the attacker's gut and throws him overboard. The horrified Crusaders raise their weapons, but the general barks at them to stand down. As calm is restored, One Eye makes it wordlessly but unmistakably clear that no one will ever touch the boy. One Crusader recalls the boy's claim that One Eye came from hell and realizes that may be exactly where they are all headed. Days later, the entire crew lies sprawled across the boat, barely clinging to life. One Eye rises, draws water up from below the deck, and drinks it without a moment's hesitation. A man laughs and tells him that will only speed up his death, but One Eye calmly hands him the water anyway. The man drinks and his eyes go wide. It is completely fresh water. The excitement spreads fast as they realize the boat has quietly drifted into an estuary, and they are no longer at sea. They all drink greedily and soon spot land on the horizon, flooding the boat with relief and joy. They come ashore expecting the Holy Land, but find themselves surrounded by vast forests, lakes, and mountains, nothing like Jerusalem. The Crusaders spread out to search for supplies and people, but find absolutely nothing. They do come across ancient indigenous burial sites, proof that some kind of settlement exists nearby. At this point, a crew member named Hawk breaks away from the group to explore on his own. One Eye falls into another vision. He sees a man caked in mud, surrounded by many others who look exactly the same. The general announces he intends to reveal himself to the locals as a true man of God. One Eye heads off alone, while Hawk, resting nearby, is suddenly startled by strange approaching sounds. Hawk draws his sword and moves cautiously toward the source of the noise. When One Eye returns to camp, he is carrying a sword that the Crusaders immediately recognize as Hawk's. Confused and alarmed, the group searches the area frantically for Hawk, but finds no trace of him. The Crusaders assume One Eye must have killed Hawk and grow terrified that they will all be next. The general reveals he once dreamed of being utterly lost and unable to find his way home, only to realize in the dream that he was already dead. He concludes this is not the Holy Land and suggests they leave, but the priest wants to wait for Hawk. The general says they will leave Hawk's sword behind. If God wills it, Hawk will find it. He insists they must keep moving to figure out exactly where they are. As they board the boat and push off, a single arrow tears through the air and kills one of their men. Panicked, they arm themselves and charge back to shore, but there is not a single soul in sight. They scatter into the woods to track the attacker, but find absolutely nothing. The general examines the arrow and spots the stone tip, confirming they are being hunted by a primitive tribe. The general declares they were guided through the mist for a reason and proposes claiming this territory for his men. The priest pushes back sharply, reminding the general they are half-starved and have already lost 3 men. The general waves off the concern and hands the priest a drink to settle his nerves. The general then passes the drink to the whole group, One Eye included, and everyone accepts. One Eye is plunged into another vision. A group of primitive tribespeople surrounds and savagely beats him on a coastline. Whatever was in that drink sends everyone into a wild haze, flooding the camp with raw anger and despair. While some pray and others wander aimlessly, One Eye painstakingly stacks rocks into a pile on the riverbank. The boy watches in horror as one Crusader frantically stabs at the river, while another violently assaults his own companion. Meanwhile, the general wades into the river, laughing and praying with total abandon. After a while, the effects finally wear off and the Crusaders slowly return to their senses. Then shock rips through the camp. Hawk walks back in completely naked, his body smeared in mud and etched with strange carvings that mirror a primitive tribe's markings. One Eye instantly recognizes this. As the mud-covered man from his vision, it seems the tribe abducted Hawk and remade him as one of their own. The general demands answers from Hawk about where he was and what happened to him, but Hawk says nothing. Instead, Hawk claims he can now hear One Eye's voice clearly and says One Eye speaks perfectly. When the general presses for what One Eye is saying, Hawk delivers a chilling answer: they are in hell. The revelation unsettles everyone, and one man openly blames One Eye for leading them here. The boy, who now understands One Eye's silent communication, tells everyone that One Eye says they must leave immediately. The forest is the only way out. Another man argues for returning to the boat, but the general flatly refuses to sail back into the fog. The general insists they must prove to these tribal people that they are servants of the Almighty. He calls for raising the cross and consecrating the land, declaring that a new Jerusalem will rise where the pagans are converted and sins are washed away. A furious crusader erupts at the general, accusing him of breaking every promise about Holy Land riches and declaring they are all in hell because of him. The man draws his sword and charges, but One Eye disarms him in an instant and drives a blade deep into his throat. A second attacker rushes in and is killed. Then One Eye finishes the first man with a brutal axe blow to the skull, while the remaining crusaders look on in stunned silence. One Eye turns, glances at the boy, and the two simply walk away together. The priest moves to follow One Eye, but the general wraps him in a sudden embrace and plunges a knife into his back, accusing him of turning away from God. The wounded priest staggers away as the general proclaims that only the truly faithful will inherit the riches of his new Jerusalem. The general vows to line the river with crosses and bring Christian brothers and women to build his new city. He names Hawk his spiritual advisor and promises the city will last for thousands of years. But Hawk only laughs, and that laughter unsettles the general. The general wades into the water to pray, but the primitive tribe unleashes a volley of arrows that cuts him down, witnessed from a distance by One Eye and the boy. Elsewhere, the wounded priest and the general's son rest together on a hilltop, the son still trailing One Eye in the hope of being guided to safety. Sitting on the hilltop, the general's son wonders aloud if he will ever find it in himself to forgive his father for dragging him to this cursed place. The priest admits he came on this journey seeking forgiveness from his own son, whom he had failed to be with when the boy died in battle. The boy relays One Eye's promise. The boy will reach the sea, find a new boat, and make it home. The general's son then asks what One Eye said about his own fate, and the boy quietly tells him he is going to die. Shaken to his core, the general's son asks One Eye why he ever came to this place, but One Eye gives no answer. The general's son resolves to turn back and be with his father, even knowing the man is already dead. He walks away in silence as One Eye and the boy continue pressing forward. The boy hopes the wounded priest will join them, but the man simply smiles and chooses to remain where he is, waiting peacefully for death. Eventually, One Eye and the boy reach the coast, the very same shoreline One Eye had seen in his visions. One Eye takes in the breathtaking landscape, then turns to find an enormous crowd of tribespeople standing silently behind them. One Eye signals the boy to stay still, then walks calmly toward the tribe, letting his axe fall to the ground along the way. He understands that his journey is over and willingly offers his life to protect the boy. He closes his eyes and the tribe descends upon him, beating him with savage fury, exactly as his vision had shown. One Eye dies, and with him gone, the tribe spares the boy and quietly walks away. The film ends with the shaken boy gazing out at the sea as One Eye's face appears in the clouds above, a sign that the warrior has finally returned to Valhalla.